you started out at 13, smoking weed for the first time. You felt that approval. What kind of happened in the next 5, 10 years with weed?
Yeah, it got to a point where I would not be enjoying my day unless I was high or I had the next high figured out in my mind. And if I was ever out of weed, it was high anxiety, like frustration, like anger, like, I need to figure this out now. And
Mm.
it wasn't. Whereas before I started smoking, it was, each day had all sorts of things in it. I might go climb a tree. I might go run with my friends. I might like light a candle and just chill. But after I got really, to the point where I couldn't be happy without smoking, my whole life just sort of revolved around that. And getting to that next high was all I really thought about. I mean, I worked at Culver's as a youngster, and like when I get my 15-minute break, I'd be running out to my car. Like before class, I'd run out. Lunch, I'd run out. After school, run out. Sneak out of my house at night. Yeah, it was a lot of covering my tracks because it's illegal. My parents didn't know, so it was a lot of sneaking, a lot of lying, deceptive teachers, and just a period of life I'm not super proud of.
Wow. And yeah, that takes me back for sure, being in those days, the sneaking around, trying to hide it from people, and thinking you're so incognito. But
Yeah, right. Like
whenever I
people.
smell somebody who like has been smoking weed, it's so strong. I just remember like I would rip bud, like hop back in the car and get out and be like, okay, the wind blew it off. I'm good.
Right. Yeah, we're fine. Nobody knows anything.
At Culver's, dude, that'd be dangerous being high, man. I worked at Jimmy John's when I was smoking weed, and whew, the munchies
Dude,
once those
going for that custard. Yeah. Like, Timmy, get out of the custard.
you're starting to realize that weed isn't, giving you the high it once did, and you're starting to kind of panic without it. I went through that same thing, right? That's when I knew. I kind of was like, oh man, this is I'm very dependent on this. How
Mm.
Take us through like the next 5 years and what transpired.
Yeah, dude. So my whole life, was sort of on a downward path at this point. And I wouldn't say weed was like the main culprit. I would say it was one of several things in my life that were just really toxic, really dragging me down. I used it in a way that was very toxic for my life. And so barely graduating out of high school, my GPA was a 1.7 senior year,
Wow.
barely making it through, trying to figure out, okay, what do I have to do to graduate? Smoking pot 10 times a day, just too much, not legal, not healthy for, 16, 17, 18-year-old, the way I was using it at all. And everything else in my life was displaced as well. There just was no consistency, no goal, no sort of like strength or plan, and really no one around me either to help guide. And so then September 11th, 2001 hit, and that shook my best friend's world, like to the core, where he, for the first time saw the fragility of life and that life can just be taken from you. And that really struck him. He was about 18 years old. His name was Ryan, still a good friend of mine. And so he has this experience on September 29th. This is a couple weeks after September 11th, where he like gives his life to God. It's like this.
Wow.
He was on, ecstasy all the time, acid, weed, mushrooms, alcohol, just the whole lifestyle. And I shared a lot with him. So he was shook to the core. He like gave it all up, gave his life to God, and then was like on a mission to like preach to me and like, dude, you have to escape the darkness. Like every day he was just after me. So then January 21st, 2002, I have a bit of a God experience where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just had this aha moment where I saw my life. And it's like, who is in control of my life? It doesn't feel like me. I believe in God, but he sure doesn't seem like he's in control of my life. And it seems like the enemy is controlling my, like, dude, I'm just involved with darkness. That's all I do. So at that point, it was like a decision, and it was like a fork in the road where I had to make a call, and I chose God. So I gave my life to God. And just from that point, it was like, okay, I'm gonna give my life to God. I want it to mean something.
What was that experience that you had that awakening with?
Yeah, dude. So, full disclosure, I was on drugs. I was using Coricidin, is a cough and cold pill,
Hmm.
and if you take a dozen of these suckers, which don't do it, it makes your brain like literally bleed or something. It's really
Yeah.
bad. So I took like 12 of those, which you can die from. And then if you smoke pot with it, it's like a dirty trip. So you hallucinate.
Okay.
And I did this a lot as a teen because we could get it from Walmart, and weed wasn't hard to get. So if you mix these things, it was easier to get than like acid or mushrooms at the time. So I was just hallucinating. And I just remember seeing this like huge lake of fire, and this is a hallucination. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was like in the center of it. I was just like, dude, this is not where I want my life to be. And it was like a representation of like where my life was at. It was just not anything good. And so it was enough to scare the crap out of me and be like, okay, I don't want that anymore.
I'm scared to hear that. I was going to ask you if you did other drugs. So yeah, that answers that as well. Like definitely dabbled with some other stuff. And yeah, this is the channel to talk about your drug use. So I'm glad you're bringing that up. I think a lot of people don't just smoke weed. I did acid as well, like shrooms, drank a lot, did a lot of Molly,
Yeah.
the whole gambit. It just can't, it all comes together. So wow, man, that's crazy. So you saw God for the first time,
Yeah.
and that's so powerful that you had that choice and you chose that. Like, I feel grateful that you did that, because it's just so many people get to that crossroads and they choose the other route.
I've like since that moment, dude, because I celebrate it too all the time. I'm like, seriously, praise God, because it just as easily I could have chose the other way. And then what plagues me is like in that moment where you have this decision that you can go towards light or you can go towards dark. Like, what is it that has, some people choose light and some people choose dark because you just want to figure that out so you can help more people choose the light. And it's so devastating. We all have a loved one or a friend or somebody, that has chosen just to give up their life ultimately. I mean, sometimes fully where they die, and other times where they just throw their lives away. And it's devastating because at any moment, every day, every breath, there's a crossroads that you can choose the right path.
100%, guys, and a real good message there that you guys always have a choice to choose what you know to be the right choice. And it's not easy. You might fail a lot. I did for sure. So
in fact, if you don't mind, I'll talk
yeah,
about my first year, because I have this kind of like epic story where I
cool.
have this experience and I give my life to God. But what happened the year after that, I gave up a lot of my life, but I still held on to weed. And so
Oh,
I lied to everybody I knew for 1 year that I had quit. And I rolled with that story because I loved it so much. And it was really hard. It was like a relationship to like get it out of my life. And so just because you make the decision doesn't mean you won't like hang on to something. And I had a year that I was hanging on to it before I finally gave it up. Would have been 2003, like January 2003.
Oh my God, dude. I was in like middle school, elementary school.
Yeah, dude.
You were the people they warned us about in the DARE meetings.
Yeah, dude, seriously.
Yeah, that program really worked, right?
Not, dude. Yeah.
Not. So yeah, that's crazy. What then led you to quit after that year? Like,
yeah, dude, I listened to a book, an Audible on purpose-driven life. It's by an author named Rick Warren. It was kind of popular back in the early 2000s. And it just talks about how we're all made with purpose and for a reason. And you're here for a reason. You're not just like organic material floating through the universe. Like there's a plan for your life. Like you can impact eternal things. Like when you impact a loved one just with like a glass of cold water, there's like something intrinsic that happens. It's like a positive impact to their life. And in greater ways, you can impact whole lives and histories and storylines by just being who you're made to be. So there's kind of this like cool aha moment where like the butterfly effect, if you've heard of that before, where like, you know roughly 1,000 people. The average person knows 1,000 people, and those 1,000 people each know 1,000 people. So you're 2 people away from 1,000,000,000. And it's like mind blowing when you think about what you can do to impact the world around you. Mm-hmm. So I saw that vision, like, so to speak. I saw that reality just through that book. I'm like, oh my gosh, wait a second. So you're saying, Rick Warren, that Tim O'Brien, whom you got to remember, I dealt with a lot of self-hatred. I don't like who I am, right? And I'm going to Rick Warren / God. I'm like, wait, so you're saying I have value? You're saying you actually made me small, 5'7", super tiny dude, like not good at sports, not like especially sharp with my mind. Like you made me this way intentionally, and I have great value, and I have gifts and strengths that I can give the world that can impact and change people's lives forever. And the answer is yes. So like, no matter who you are or what you've been through or what you're in the middle of or what you're going towards, you can change the world. Like you have inherent, intrinsic, there's something about your makeup, your personality, your strengths that have such tremendous value that a diamond is like the only thing I can think of to compare that to. It's like infinite value, each person. So almost all of a sudden I'm like, mind is blown. So now instead of depression, I'm like, whoa, dude, I have a light and a gift to give to the world, and I only have 80 years to share it. I better get after it. So it's sort of this like driven by eternity ideology where it's like time is short. Life is like a vapor. We're here 1 second, gone the next. Like it's going to be gone before a blink of an eye. So this is such a small period of time in the scope of eternity. I'm like, let's do something great. Let's get after it. Like, let's stop wasting my life doing what? There's way too many people out there suffering, way too many people out there that aren't living quality of life, way too many people out there that are depressed, stuck on drugs, like throwing their lives away, literally throwing their lives away. Like, I got to do something about it. So that's the point in 2002 that I'm like, or 2003 that I'm like, dang, dude, I have to like cast off anything that's holding me down and just run the race.
Dude, I got chills, man.
Thank you, dude.
Yeah, dude, we gotta get you on a YouTube channel or start your own.
Oh, thank you, man. It's fun, dude. I mean, it's just, and everybody has that light inside them. They just gotta, they gotta discover it.